Hey everyone, welcome back to the Restored to More podcast. We are so excited for our guest today. We got to just connect, and I'm like, oh yeah, we should probably record a podcast because I'm so excited for this conversation, and I know you guys are going to be too.
And let me tell you a little bit about Brook Mosser. So Brook Mosser leads Intentional, a growing movement for spiritual formation in the family, helping people follow the way of Jesus through everyday realities of marriage, parenting, fatherhood, and motherhood. With nearly 2 decades in pastoral ministry, he brings a rare blend of theological depth, relational insight, and lived experience, equipping families to be formed, not just informed. Brook hosts the Intentional Parents podcast with his wife, Elizabeth, and is also the founder of Intentional Fatherhood, where they lead men to lead their families with purpose, presence, and faithfulness. He also has recently authored Sowing a Hidden Seed, Daily Prayers for Your Children's Spiritual Growth, a devotional designed to help parents cultivate a daily rhythm of prayer, presence, and blessing with their children. Brook, it is an honor to have you on the podcast.
Thank you guys. It's rare that you get the intro, like you listening to the intro, and you never feel comfortable with those. I'm never like, oh, that feels comfortable. Yeah. So those are some things we're doing, but I promise I'm still lots of room for improvement. Those are just the bullet points of good things I've done. I've got a lot of other really good data from this last week, even of not so great moments. So we can talk about those today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Honored to be here, though. Thank you guys for having me. Honored to be here.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, I mean, it was so neat hearing multiple podcasts of just like some of our friends that we're listening to. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to have him on our podcast. And I want to hear his story. We want to ask him questions. I mean, seriously, we could ask you questions probably on like every angle.
So many topics,
like parenting and marriage and all the things. And we could probably have you on multiple times. But today we were like, you know what? We really want to go full force into vulnerability, accountability, healthy masculinity. But before we even go there, just for our listeners who may not know you yet, can you just share a little bit about your story and the heart behind the work that you do?
Oh, yes, my story. It's probably like anyone's listening, which is it feels unimpressive, and then you realize you think about it for a minute, and you're like, it's layered, it's complicated. Um, so my story is one of reluctancy for lots of different reasons into the work I'm doing. I never planned on doing the work I was doing. I wasn't like, I got an idea. Why don't I do the work I'm doing? Similar to, it sounds like you guys as well. You know, it wasn't like this was a part of the grand scheme of your life.
Nope.
But I will say, so I'm married to Elizabeth. We've been married for almost 20 years. We have 4 kids, 1 boy and 3 girls. Duke is my son. We have Scarlett, Birdie, and Sloan. And yeah, so life is full. It is dynamic. It is ever changing. My son has a girlfriend and a job and a car, and we're in all the stages. 2 kids in high school. Like, there's so many beautiful things happening, and at the very same time, it's like, wow. Like last night, I'm tired today because at 8:30, it's 15 high school people and able-bodied people just descend upon our home, and it's like, hey, we're going to walk to get ice cream, and then they walk to go get ice cream, and they come back. And I'm sitting on the couch and I'm kind of like laying back a little bit. And my wife's sitting there too. And it is one kid playing piano, another kid learning a song. Someone turns on a song, they're singing, they're playing spoons, if you know about this game, in the middle of the living room. Other kids are in the other room trying on my son's clothes because he's like, dude, I want to try this stuff on. My son's like, you got to get this stuff. And so I'm just sitting in this whirlwind and like, this is so overwhelming and I wouldn't have it any other way. So that's the stage of life I'm in currently. I'm just giving you a quick little window. That's like, that was my life last night. And 10:30, I was like, guys, listen, we're old now. You got to go. So, but I'm 40. So like if you go back childhood, like, so I grew up in what would have been called a very nominal Christian home, Christian by name, not necessarily by heart. And my parents did the best they could, but they both came from very, very, very complex backgrounds. And so for me, I grew up in a place where I thought Jesus was the center, and he was as much as he could. But again, my parents came from very complicated backgrounds on both sides. And so there was just no way that their unhealth wasn't going to impact me. My mom she was the middle of 5 kids, a lot of poverty, a lot of alcoholism. And she found my dad when she was 16. They started dating when they were 16. My dad similarly found my mom when he was 16 in high school, and he was the baby of 10 kids. a Catholic family, so they just didn't believe in birth control, so they kept having kids, but not because they were like, we want to be excellent parents. We just, this is what happens. This is how it works. And so they kept having kids, but man, arguably probably didn't want all of them. And so there was just massive amounts of abuse. And if you're a person that has been abused or has had any kind of like uh abuse in your story, you might want to pause this next part, or just like heads up, there's some intensities here. But yeah, my so many of my dad's siblings were both physically and sexually molested and raped by their father. And so it was the most heinous situation that you could think about. And so my dad grew up in that environment, no doubt being affected. And my mom and dad meet each other. They find Jesus at 18 and they get married. And they're like, all of the problems in our life are solved. And I would say, in many ways, they were. Like, in many ways, there were so many beautiful things that did happen in a beautiful way. But you can't just all of a sudden undo the life that you grew up in and in some way hope that your story doesn't impact those closest to you and especially your children. It will absolutely impact you and impact your kids. And so I grew up in a place where my parents had it, so many things put together on the surface, but deep down there was so much deep hurting that we didn't even know. And I didn't even know fully until I was about 17. There was a particular night where I was 17, my older brother was 19, my younger sister was 17, or sorry, 15, 15, 17, 19. And my parents call a family meeting, and we don't do family meetings. So that was weird. I was like, what are we doing? And basically, my dad comes out and just says, hey, I've been cheating on your mom our entire marriage, but it hasn't been with women, it's been with men. I've been gay my whole life. And this is what I've been doing. This is what I've been up to. And at that moment, there's a lot of kids and a lot of people that they hear about these moments or things like, hey, I've been cheating on your mom, or vice versa. And that always is really challenging. I think the extra burn for me wasn't that my dad was gay or it was with men versus women. It was that who I thought my dad was not even close to who he actually was. And there was this huge part of his life that never ever was revealed until this moment. And it kind of like was told to us, but then told like, never tell anybody, never talk about it, never ever say anything. And that makes, and for kids, if you are listening and you have kids and you need to talk to them eventually, don't tell them to not tell anybody. That's pain upon pain, because they're suffering in so many different ways from that. And to not have an outlet or feel permission or feel like I'm dishonoring my parents. Like even now, for real, like I'm having this check in my spirit, like, am I okay to say this? But it's not because I'm not okay to say it. It's because it is so deeply rooted in me. Like you can't tell the family secret.
Wow.
And so that was the backstory for my life. And at 17, like all of a sudden I was like, wow, life is not what I expected.
Mm.
And as you can imagine, that has very many layered problems. And growing up, it kind of started to make sense of why a lot of the abuse, a lot of the intensities of my childhood were the way they were. And by God's grace, like my dad never, sexually abused us or did a lot of the things that his father did. But there was still so many broken parts of our family that didn't make sense until he started to be honest about that. But
Brooke,
that
I want to
sent
ask
me
you a
into
question real
adulthood.
quick. Can I ask you a
Yeah,
question,
yeah,
Brooke, right there? So
yeah,
we had a different angle we're trying to go with our episode, but I'm like, all right, we can't not ask this question. And one of those things is that a lot of people listening to this podcast are in their own stories of betrayal, right? Within their
yeah,
own family unit. So people are
sure.
listening to this, they're looking for hope. We're hoping to give it through the power of Jesus. But I'm
Yeah.
wondering, as a kid, what do you think you would have liked and would have helped you from your parents? Like a lot of our listeners are the couple that has betrayal in their story. And there are a lot of people that say, man, what's the best way to communicate this to my kids? Obviously, it's different when they're under 5 years old or under 10, but
Yeah.
you were a high school student. And so I think about that. I'm like, oh, what would you have really looking back? What's probably one of the better things they could have done or said to you to help you also process and heal from the aftermath of finding out?
Yeah. It's a good question. Um, I would say for me, well, not just for me. I know this to be true because this is like some of the work that we do now, and it's really clear across the board. I think if that is your story and you're telling your kids, just basically saying, hey, listen, this is probably going to upset a lot of parts of you. And I want you to know that you're free to ask any question, no matter how uncomfortable, because it's the curiosity that and the unknown that really does breed all sorts of potential pain or pain. And just having someone frame it for you can be really healing.
Yeah.
And why it's important to feel like give that space is because there's this thing called the narrative void. It's really interesting. It's a psychological term, but what's interesting about a narrative void in kids is if you don't explain what's happening, what happens is there's a narrative void, which is exactly what it sounds. It's a gap in the story of the narrative. And if you don't fill it in with reality, they naturally fill it in with, well, it's because I'm the problem or there's something with me. And so why it is so important to explain to your kids what is happening and what's really going on and that it's not their fault as an example is because if they don't, they'll fill in the gap that they might be been a part of the problem. And so I think just explaining in appropriate terms what it is. I wish my parents would have done that. I wish they would have said, hey, listen, this is probably going to bring up a host of questions for you. Ask anything. Also want to let you know that you can talk to anybody you need to talk to about this to help process it. If that's us, great. If it's someone else, we'll set you up to make sure that you have that person. I think just being present, what happened was they went into survival mode. My dad went to therapy, didn't really stick or last, but my mom went into survival mode. My mom knew about this the whole time, by the way, which is also really tricky. And she stayed married with him until he died. And that's another story of how he died. But so many layers with this, and I know this is intense. But like I said, I don't have any room for side conversations at this point. We just talk about the real stuff around here. But for me, with my parents, if they would have just been clear and open and honest, and then given me, even at that age, to be like, hey, would you like to talk to someone that's not us? And then even gone out of their way to set that up, pay for that, do whatever they can. That would have pain is pain. It wouldn't have stopped the pain that I would have had, but it would have made a lot more sense to my life and story at that point.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have had that narrative void, which I'm sure you internalized as something, right? Something
Yeah.
I'm not enough.
I want to ask, did you have that? Did you have that narrative void because of the lack of ability? And did you ever kind of blame yourself?
So because of the age I was, I think the answer is no. I think that happens when it's more confusing and you're younger. At that point, I was almost an adult, but here's what it did do. It didn't do the narrative void thing, although that does happen classically in younger ages, although it could older. What it did for me was cause me to question everything. So now all of a sudden I'm like, well, am I gay? And the answer is like, well, no, I've never been attracted to a dude a day in my life. But I had to go through does that mean, okay, does this mean I'm going to cheat on my wife?
Wow.
Whoa, does that mean I'm destined to this? The other thing it made me think is why am I serving God at all? Well, does any of this matter? Does anything in life actually matter at this point? If everything that I thought my life was and built on is not actually that. So it caused that kind of stuff. I remember the place I was walking in my house at the time because I lived with my parents, obviously, and I was walking down the hall. I was like, why am I even serving God at this point? So it got to that level, and quickly, by God's grace, it was I felt like the Spirit even that moment. I remember it's just it snapped me into no, there's so much more for you in life. This is not your destiny. This isn't you. But I had to go through that, and it took I'm still working through stuff like that, to be honest. Yeah.
Wow. So, well, first of all, thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Sure.
I had heard that on another podcast, and I'll just say right now, I wrote a note to mention it to you later, but your story, which we won't get into all of it, so everybody go listen to Open Spaces podcast with Jeff and Jordan because they get it really well. But your story of forgiveness for your father and just taking us on that journey radically actually impacted my life with my mom and blessed me so much to the point of me now actually moving towards a relationship with her and just opened up a door and a softening of my heart. So just want to say, just side off comment, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know you haven't shared it that much. And I just want to say thank you for sharing that right now on even our podcast. Because I know it's real, it's raw, it's vulnerable. And at the same time, I know you have blessed me tremendously when you shared it with Jeff and Jordan. I know you're blessing people who are listening to it right now. So thank you.
Charity, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Um, yeah, I appreciate you saying that because there's those moments, especially you guys know this in the digital world, you have conversations, you throw things out and you don't know how it impacts people, but to hear like that it would even move just one person and getting to meet this person and you to wanting to work towards forgiveness. I mean, that's all that it like that's worth it right there. And so that's beautiful. And just to be fair, it's still really tricky. So
Yeah.
my dad is no longer here on this planet, so there is a difference there, but it's even more challenging when the relationship's ongoing and evolving. And so just to note, it's it's a constant act of forgiveness. It's not just a one moment. I think we forget that it's not just like, okay, I did the thing, we're good, things are squared, because emotions come back. It's like you have to constantly push the log of forgiveness out when the shores of pain bring it back in.
Yeah.
And I think that visual is probably the most helpful, is because emotions will come back in, you'll remember something that happened. That log is going to come back in, and forgiveness is you pushing it back out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
I love that. Brooke, to keep going here with your story a little bit, you're really passionate about masculinity in the church, masculinity in men, and what that looks like for accountability and for fellowship. And I love that. I love that you started a podcast with, I think it's Justin. And I think I just would love to hear, what was the motivation behind that? What was a little bit of your journey with masculinity, and why did you feel like it was such a conversation that needed to happen within the church?
Oh man, complicated for me to answer that question, but we're on a podcast, so we have time. You guys just want to talk about it? Let's just talk. Why don't we just talk about it?
That's it. We're just talking about it.
Yeah. So I was really reluctant for a lot of years to start intentional fatherhood. The guy I partnered with, Justin Whitmel Early, that's his author name. Written a lot of great books. Habits of the Household is one of them that hits a lot of families, but a lot of other wonderful books as well. Um, and the reason I wanted to even start it, the reason I remember even having the conversation with him and saying, dude, I think we should do this, is because I think there's a massive um, gap and a massive opportunity to help men, because more than ever, there's this really interesting message that men are getting. Now, I have a lot of, my vantage point is very different than a lot of, I think, men or men's ministries. Like, to even call it a men's ministry like makes me cringe, because I think of, we have to throw axes in the woods together, and we have to do all whatever the stereotypical
Shoot some guns,
overtly,
blow
yeah,
something up.
overtly
Yeah.
cultural manly things are.
Yeah.
And that there is no shade on all my brothers that love trucks and guns and axes and camping. I love that stuff too. I'll like hang out with you and do that stuff. I'm not going to naturally go do that by myself, but I love that. I love the whole situation. There's zero shade. It's just simply that that's kind of been the one archetype that we've seen. And there's a version of masculinity within that is good, but it's like, hey, we don't really talk too deeply, and we don't cry too much, and we don't actually reveal too much, because that's going to like, now that's not everyone, and that's a blanket statement. That's unfair. I get all that. But it just made me see, like, I don't see myself in that. And so what happened, why I drug my feet for so long, is because I just couldn't figure out what it looked like. I was like, I don't know what it looks like. And mind you, I'm not coming into fatherhood or parenting feeling real good about the thing. I feel like I have come into adulthood with so many limps, so many wounds. The first 10 years of my marriage was just figuring out like how messed up I really was, and really just trying to be like learning how to be honest and undo all the craziness that I grew up in. And that's still not done. Like there's still there's residue of that in my life still. But I'm working at it every day, every day and every week, and year over year, month over month, things change. But it takes time. So I didn't feel like, oh, I should be the guy giving anybody encouragement about fatherhood. I'm barely hanging on. I am overreacting to my kids. I'm yelling at my kids. I'm irritated. I'm all the things that any man listening, any mom listening is feeling like. I'm all those things. Why in the world would I ever help or think so nobly of myself to help anybody? So that's where that was my disposition. I wasn't like confident about it. What didn't start from a place of like, you guys, I got some stuff figured out. Just listen and you'll be okay. It was honestly very much fear and trembling, because it was a point of weakness. And so it didn't feel like exciting. It felt like scary. It felt very scary. So why is because I felt like there was a world in which, what if the most broken people are the ones that can help the most broken people? And what if it is the fact our weakness of our stories that give us strength. But, biblically we know that's true, and not the opposite. And so I was like, what if we just, in my head, in my heart, it was more just through a prayer. Like, what if this just thing flipped on its head and we just were just really honest and vulnerable and didn't pretend that we weren't dealing with all the things we dealt with, and let's just talk about it and not pretend. And I don't know what, culture that's going to create in men or fatherhood in general, but I'll just tell you this. I thought there'd be a very small amount of men that would resonate with it. The amount of men that have resonated with it specifically, and mothers too, of course, but the amount of fathers that have resonated with it is staggering. And it's been one of those things that feels feels like an honor to be able to like host and have these conversations, have these events. But at the same time, it's not like I can't take credit for it. I think it's just simply like I don't have much time to pretend. And so the transparency, vulnerability was like, that's a huge part of masculinity. And I think the most masculine men are the ones that are the most honest. I wouldn't even say take away whatever stereotypical version of manliness or masculinity, whatever that means to you. It really doesn't have to do with any of that exterior stuff. Real masculinity, godly masculinity is humble. It's strength, it's meekness, it's strength under control. It's having the ability to crush the world and those around you, but choosing to serve them instead. And to be honest about your pain and to say, yeah, I deal with that too. And it's amazing to think of how much freedom you give others when you're just honest about how hard life is for yourself. And these are things that I didn't really know fully going into it, but more and more each year that goes by, it's like, wow, I am so grateful that God has given us the opportunity to set a table for people to just like come and know like, hey, you're safe. You can be honest. So I wouldn't even say like I'm attacking or wanting to like change masculinity in the church. I just want to represent the parts that are very important and haven't really been represented really in my experience growing up. I mean, Promise Keepers was a fun thing. I remember that. But even that now it's changed a lot, and there's no shade on all those guys doing. I love what they're doing, but I mean, it's like in the body of Christ, if you think about it, I love the idea of the body of Christ. You have that in the church, but what if like different nonprofits and different churches were an ear or an eye or a foot, and really we are all to represent a part or a side of Jesus in a way that is a gift. And so, to restore to more, what is your particular, body part, so to speak, that you're supposed to honor and bless the church with? And that's the same for intentional. And so it wasn't against as much as it was like, hey, let's just add the thing that I don't see a lot of right now. So
I love that.
Oh, it's so good. I got like,
What are you thinking?
and like, I was just being so passionate because well, one, just to like edify what you're doing, I just want to say, like, I truly think it's actually biblical. Like, what you did was you were obedient to a calling. Like, so many people that God used over and over and over again in the Bible, it wasn't because they were so great, it was because they were so not great.
Yeah, agreed. Yes.
Moses
Yes.
was struggling. David struggled. Like, so many
Mhm.
of them had Paul, like so many of them had huge weaknesses. And that's the people that were qualified to go reach the broken people. So
Mm.
just to like
Mm. Thank you.
just edify what you're doing and the mission behind it, I love it so much because I think culture has just kind of twisted it like, well, what's your all of your degrees behind your name and all those, if you're called to that and that's where God's leading you, awesome. And I do think he also uses broken people to reach broken people, and you don't have to
Yeah.
have all these things to be perfect, right? And so
Mhm.
I love that you guys lead with vulnerability. We've watched so many of your like Instagram reels, and we just,
Mhm.
that's the thing that's attracted us the most is like, wow, look at this guy who's talking about emotions. Look at this guy who's talking about authentic
Feelings.
feelings
Yeah.
and dysregulated. Like, and it's bringing the conversation to be normal around that versus like
Yeah.
masculinity is just being strong and not talking about it and then yelling at your kid and
Mhm.
have control and anger and all those things, right? And
Yeah.
we love everything that you are doing and think it is just
Mm.
so awesome. We're so
Mm.
for it. And so, yeah, I just wanted to be like,
Thank
oh, that
you.
was so good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
I
very
think
kind.
my experience, Brooke, has been so many guys that have a story like mine are walking out of addiction, and praise
Mhm.
God. Like, praise God that addiction is no longer present in their life. It's not controlling their life. But I think it was also the coping mechanism to cope with feelings, with pain.
Mhm.
And so, in order for us to be healthy, we have to learn a new way. of living, a new way of like, oh, coping with unwanted feelings, with negative emotions. And a lot of us were trained to just run away from them, whatever the coping mechanism is, whether it's pornography or masturbation or it's alcohol or it's now there's a lot of accepted things in the church. Workaholism is hardly ever talked about, like rest. That's been a new topic for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Some of John Mark Comer's books and stuff like that. But I still think there is a misunderstood conversation around feelings and how do we how do we live vulnerable lives as men? How do we do that? And how do we find places where that's going to be accepted or modeled for us? I think in the beginning, it's like, well, I don't know how to do this. I think a lot of men feel kind of stuck, like, well, if they're being super vulnerable, I don't think I can be vulnerable. So I guess and I have a lot of questions around that. I think one of the questions is almost like how can what would be a reason a man would want to do that, would want to enter into relationships with other men where he can be vulnerable? I think it may sound like a dumb question, but I think a lot of us are going, I don't know if I really want to do that. That sounds so uncomfortable. That sounds terrifying. Fear of rejection, fear of performance. Like, why would I want to be showing up as a broken person, a person who's yelling at my kids, a person who's saying things to my wife that I regret on the daily, a person who feels overwhelmed by finances and life and job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I do. I know exactly what you mean. I think it's because the person that can name all that feels all that, doesn't know what to do with all that. And so you stuff that, and then it becomes a nuclear bomb of your life. And so, yeah, why? Well, do you want that? I think the answer to any good man listening is no, you don't want that. You just don't know what to do. And being open and vulnerable is scary, yes. But that's also a massive lie of the enemy that when I'm down, I'm going to get kicked. Here's something that's so ironic for good people. The amount of like truly evil people in this world is very small compared to what a lot of people think. There are truly evil people. They do exist, but they are far more rare. And I would just say that most good-hearted people do not see a kid fall down and go, I'm going to kick that kid because he's already on the ground, right? Like, this just seems convenient. They've been a punk to me. Like, what do? Your heart goes, let me pick them up. The moment you can sit around a fire or sit in a living room, have a conversation, and be the proverbial kid that fell on the ground by sharing your story, everyone is going to do the opposite of what you assumed. They're going to pick you up. They're going to say what's true. They're going to hold you. They're going to help you. They're going to say, hey, this is actually good. So I think if you can name all that stuff, you know that you need it. It's just that you don't know what to do. And you've probably tried the other stuff. The thing about alcohol is it does work for a moment. The thing about porn, it works for a moment. The thing about overeating, it works for a moment. It all works for a moment. And it's mostly biological. So it's biological relief, never emotional, never spiritual, never actually relational relief. And so you're dealing with a biological part only. And then so what are all those other parts doing? They're just being masked. And this is where alcoholism, addiction, all that stuff comes from. You guys know that well. But I would say the visual that comes to mind, if you want just a really good time, if you're looking for something good to do tonight, YouTube has a wonderful amount of videos, too many actually. But some of the better ones are when little babies get glasses for the first time. Do you guys know these videos? You've seen them, and you just cry every time. You're like, oh, it's just like they find out they can't really see, and then they put glasses on their babies, and the babies finally see like their mom as an example clearly, and they hear their voice, and the response even at like a 3-month-old, 5-6-month-old is insane laughter and crying and an emotion that you're like, this is like, if you want a good cry, just go do this. Like Charity's crying now. It is literally so
Little
beautiful.
baby on. I'm like,
oh, and baby glasses, talk about the cutest thing ever invented. Ever. I mean, like, I wish my kids, I was like, I wish they needed them. They don't. But I don't, obviously I don't wish pain on them, but I think to answer your question, that visual comes to mind. So why would a guy want to do it? Well, I think you're moving through life with blurred vision, and that group or that moment or that opportunity is for you to have glasses to see life as it really actually is, and to live in the full freedom that God actually designed you to live. Because even if you can't articulate it, you know what's going on isn't the right thing or the good thing or the best thing. You don't want to go to bed with the tension you do. You don't want to live with this stuff. You want to show up better. You just don't know how. And if there's something I can say so confidently that I've learned so confidently, and I don't say many things confidently, I promise I don't. Men don't lack good heart or desire, they lack models. The
Mm-hmm.
men I meet have great hearts. It has nothing to do with their heart. And when a wife comes to me and she's like, well, he just won't do it. No, it's not because he doesn't love you or he doesn't want to. He doesn't know how. And he's scared to try things and like risk it with your heart and with your kids' lives. And it's actually this noble thing that is, almost in some ways because of pain, which is real, used against him of like, you're not showing up, you're not doing the thing. Most of it is just because we don't have good models. And so what intentional fatherhood is attempting to do is like, we don't got it perfect. We're in the same boat phenomenon. That means we're in the same boat as you, but here's some of the stuff we're trying. Here's some models to try. And it isn't that we figured it out, but I'm 40 now. Justin's 40 as well. And we're right in that stage where it's like, okay, we lived enough life to know we're pretty much broken in lots of ways. And we've tried enough stuff to realize or have enough time to go like, hey, some of the stuff that we've attempted or others have helped us with has worked. So why would we not pass that on? Here's a model that you can try. And so we're trying to give models. So that's where things like the Intentional Fatherhood podcast or our Intentional Parents podcast, those are real honest moments where we talk about like what the models look like, our events that we do. If you want to like know how to do that, come to an event. We talk about all of that. Like, what does it look like? How do you build that community? The main question for men is, well, if I don't have it, how do I build it? And I'll say to you, you got to start it. How do you start it? Find people that are safe, that love and have the best for you, and share everything. Like that's how you start it. And watch when you share everything, how that person's going to be like, well, I got some stuff too. So that's a long-winded response, but that is what I would say to your question.
Well, I would say just to piggyback on that, for me, right, just to make it super relatable, I haven't seen the videos about kids with glasses, which I need to watch,
You'll be blessed.
but I feel like I've experienced that, right?
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
after recovery, there was a few guys that we just were like, man, we need to meet weekly and we just
Yep.
need to talk about real things. We need to share vulnerably. We need to talk about everything that is hard to talk about amongst men.
Mhm.
And I think if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, is it really going to be worth it? Is it really going to benefit me? I felt like I was the kid with those glasses, right? Because I would walk away
Mhm.
from those meetings and be like, oh my gosh, that was so incredible. And after years of doing it, you're like, oh, wow, this is what life is supposed to be like, where
Mhm.
there are people in my life that truly know me and that love me and that don't judge me, right? Because I think the fear is I'm going to get judged. I'm going to be looked at as less than masculine. I'm going to be viewed as somebody who's inadequate. I mean, there's so many fears, I think, that keep us
Mhm.
from opening up. But what I hear you saying is like, man, you're just not experiencing life to the full. I feel like there's Jesus who's saying, like, I came to give you life to the full. And a part of that is living
Mhm.
in a sense of realness, a sense of rawness and vulnerability, so that men can experience that. And I'm just super grateful for
Mhm.
that, Brooke. I think that's so, so good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What are some questions? Do you have some certain questions that you give guys to like say like, hey, just start with maybe one or three of these questions to start
Really
building like,
practical.
yeah, some practical steps to build that vulnerability conversation versus like surface level questions of how was your week? How are you doing? Like, do you have a couple good questions to go there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think even taking a step back from that is like most dudes have friends. I think as stupid as this sounds, having a DTR is really important. And when I say DTR, it's not as obviously relational as a spouse or a girlfriend, but a simple thing to say like because sometimes why I'm saying this is because sometimes you'll be like you'll skip this step and you'll just start sharing openly and this dude's like I never signed up to ever care about this, right? And that's really hurtful.
That's
You know that it's
yeah.
and there where women are honestly far more gracious and open to this like and naturally have more of a heart towards that part of empathy. And it's not that women don't have to work at this too, but there's a more natural bent towards that where there's certain guys who are like I'm fine with never feeling an emotion and pretending I don't have them.
Yep.
And when that happens, it's almost more hurtful. So a DTR, very minor, just like, hey, I'll give you a script right now. I'm really wanting to grow as a man. I know I can be better as a husband. I know I can be better as a father. I know I can be better in these different ways. That said, I'd like to have a place to talk about this. I think it'd be great to talk to you about it. Are you open to this idea of like sharing just some of the stuff going on? And then as we share, just pray. Are you okay with that? That gives, then they can say yes or no. It gives them a chance to think about it. And then it really mitigates the future pain of being like another level of rejection, right? Like that's not helpful. So as much as it sounds silly, just ask. Then I would say set up a very manageable, very, very realistic schedule where you can meet and it's very realistic. So one of my friends every single Thursday at 1:45 p.m. my time, some other time his time. It's 15 minutes. And it's three things. It is three things. It's always very simple and it's always something like it's just very simple. So the first thing is like give me like what's anything good going on? Like, okay, what's the good stuff? What's the hard stuff? And then is there anything silly that you're dreaming about? Something silly that you'd be embarrassed to like share with anybody that's like really dumb, or something that you're dreaming about that's so big that it feels silly to even say out loud. So it's not just like, hey, what good is going on? Let me hear that. What bad is going on? Let me hear that. What are those things that you're like really thinking about where it sounds silly to say out loud and almost feels arrogant to be like, I want to do this thing. Tell me that thing and let me pray with you into it. And it's always longer than that. It's never 15 minutes. For us, I mean, there are days when it's like, hey, listen, I really do have 15 minutes, but it's on the calendar. We have that conversation and it's minor in the sense of it's a low bar as far as commitment goes, but it's consistent. And if we miss it, we're like, hey, I missed you this week. I'm going to catch up. We'll just move it to next week. Or like, hey, I got a couple of minutes. You want to chat? That's the like ongoing. I would say I have a friend he's going to be here tomorrow and he lives in a different state. And so he'll come whenever we meet up. It's like a day or two of concentrated times of talking about everything. And this is where we'll talk about our life, our purity, our finances. We have fun together. It's like we're going to see a Jim Gaffigan show and smoke cigars. Like that's what we're doing. That's our fun thing we're going to do. But then we're also going to sauna and cold plunge because I like doing that. And throughout that whole process, it will be like, how is the situation with your wife? What about this situation with your daughter? How's that going? He'll ask detailed questions about the work we're doing. He'll ask, everything under the sun. So that's another example of what it could look like for some. It might be a weekly fire pit, but I think I'm trying to just give a myriad of options to say, this is a model, right? Take it and apply it to you. If you like hunting, if you like golfing, if you like just sitting by a fire, like figure out ways to do that and just have real conversation, but let the guys know that that's what you're trying to do. Like, let them know, hey, I want to actually talk about real stuff.
Stuff like, and then if it's a joke, so quickly to like become like a Bible study. Like all you do is go over a book of the Bible and never share, or you read a book, or it's like you just kind of banter. And it's like, oh, it's been an hour. Like we gotta go.
Yeah. Well, and that's literally just a waste of time. When it comes to just call that what it is. You just want to hang. Just hang. Yes. Don't call it a Bible study. Just hang. Like, it's great. Fun is actually a part of the Bible and Christian experience, and it has to be prioritized. So don't ignore it. But just remember that's a part. It's not the whole. The last thing I'll say is this is actually something that has unintentionally happened with the Intentional Fatherhood podcast is because we don't have a book for it. A lot of guys are just listening to it and then they'll get together once a week and then they'll just talk about it. And in those episodes, there's so many different models. So that again is like low bar, but that's an easy way it's a free resource, free to make. Free to listen to, not to make, by the way, you guys know that. You're a nonprofit. Just remember that. That said, though, there are resources that are out there for people like that. There's generosity of others that pay for that to happen so that you can have a free resource and talk about it around a fire. So you use all that stuff.
I can't even that was all so good. That was so rich. I know people are going to just like be so blessed by that. I wish I would have known that a couple years ago because I totally just like got these girls and just was hoping without like defining the relationship. I did not do that.
Oh, can we say what DTR is? We might have some these Christian kids that are like, what's a DTR?
Find the relationship.
Yeah, you can call it whatever you want. Use whatever you need it to be, but it just basically make sure that the other person consent. We love consent in our moment. Okay. So let the other person consent to the emotional vulnerability that you are asking them to enter into.
Yes. It will just save you so much like heartache and
Expectations.
expectations. Yeah. Like I got so let down when I
Okay.
was so hoping to go there with some girls and they were just like, no. And I'm like,
Yep.
oh darn, this sucks.
Yeah.
You know? So
Yep.
I just love this so much. So good. It's gonna bless
I
so
have
many
I have a
people.
question for the wives, which is funny that I'm asking it, but I think there are times, right, where Charity knows I need to do this. And if
Hmm.
she like is like, you need to call so and so, you need to go process your feelings, even though she's wise and she's exactly right, there's this pushback, right? Because it's like we don't want to be told what to do. My question is, Brooke, is how can a wife encourage their husband to pursue authentic, you know, intimacy within these men and this kind of this awesome time of connection without forcing him to do it or doing it in a way that maybe makes him turn off from wanting to do it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have lots. There is a level of, what's the right way to say it? There is a level of awareness that husbands, men have of their wives' hearts, intentions, body language, all the like, that wives often assume we don't.
Ah, it's good.
So there's a huge difference between you saying, hey, I really think you need to go to the thing with the guys and you need to talk with them and you need to confess because you're basically really annoyed at the version of him that he is and you just want him to behave and you want this to stop and blah blah. Not a wrong thing to want, just you're trying to get the right thing the wrong way. So just note that tone, that body language, that heart are felt and seen more than you even know, ladies, more than you even know. And even if your husband can't articulate it because he's known you for so long, there's that knowing biblically that is, of course, sexual, that is, of course, soul level connection. And it's also emotional, where there's a knownness to your spouse that they can move in a way and you're like, they're pissed. That's it. We're done for the like, they don't have to say
Yep.
anything for you
Yep.
to know everything's off now.
So true.
And so with that same heart, I think there's a very big difference. So I'd say first, the first practical thing is like, first ask Jesus. First, God, is my heart right in this? Am I just mad? And if you are, don't do it then. Process that with God. Talk with him about it. God, I'm really angry at my husband for these reasons, and they're probably valid, but you're not the executioner. And you have to remember if you want tension, going about it that way will surely produce tension. And so, first, checking your own heart. And then I think with men, especially, sometimes it's depending on where your stage is, there's awareness and then there's like acceptance of the awareness you're bringing. Those two A's are important. So awareness and then acceptance. You might be in the journey, wife, where you are actually making him aware of something he doesn't know. That means it's going to take a bit. It means it's like, hey, have you ever thought of having some time with your buddy, John, and like you guys just going and making space? If you ever want to do that, I'll make sure that I have the kids and you guys just go have some space. Um, that might take a long time to help him become aware that that might be a thing. If you're in the process of acceptance where he's actually aware of it and he needs to accept it and it's just like a logistical thing, it might look like, hey, I've noticed that you're under a lot of stress. I've noticed like you might need some time, and not in a shame way, not because, hey, you're overworking, you're really hard to be around, go be with your dudes. Like, not that, like, hey, I think it could be really good for you. I see that you might need this. That's okay. Like, and as much as you can say that in a non-shame filled way, and it's just like I'm asking people to do like sometimes emotional, impossible things, especially if there's tension and unworked through stuff. But all to say, like that will get you way further
Yeah.
than the unchecked, unaware. So I'd say first, and also name where that's at. Are you in the awareness stage? Is your husband just not even aware? If he is and he's accepted it, well, then it's more about logistics. It's more about helping him. Like, can I take the kids for the night so you can do that, or whatever the thing is.
For you, Brooke, I just one last question before we close out. How has this enhanced your life? You know, you having people that you can communicate with, how has this benefited you on a really personal level?
Basically, having people to do life with and connect with in this way.
Yeah, as far as a man and having other men in your life, like how has this
Mm. I
benefited
mean,
you?
it's hard to even calculate. It'd be too hard to calculate. Um, there's a whole other host of stories with my wife and I. With she has a lot of chronic pain and a lot of stuff going on. We have a lot of health issues with our kids, and so we have a lot of tension in our home. And whether I want it or not, we have tension all the time because people are a lot of the times physically not feeling well. You know, when you don't feel well and like how all of a sudden every part of your, ability to manage emotions just goes out. So we have a lot of that happens. And so, um, even this weekend, just like had a lot of tension. My wife is in a new flare. She has back surgery in like 2 weeks. We have this whole thing, like life is nuts over here when it comes to health. And so we were just having a very hard Saturday morning. We meant to go out, and it's just her and I. I said something, I'm sure, I can't even remember at this point, but I said something and then it just fumbled into that, like, okay, this is an unrecoverable morning, I guess. And all the things we were planning on doing is not happening. And the first thing I did was called my friend.
Mm.
Hey, this is happening. And I was like, you know what I want to do? I want to punch a wall. I want to look at porn. I want to drink. I want to cheat on my wife. Not because I actually will ever do any of those things, but like here's like all the fleshly stuff that's coming out of me because of this dysregulation. I know it. I know what it is. And I'm obviously not going to act on it, but I just want to let you know that's the state I'm in. Please call me back. you know, and then like I need you. And he didn't even call back. He just voice memo back and it was the sweetest, reminder of like, hey, you like you're not any of those things. I know you're not going to do any of those things. This is a safe place. Make sure you're in a safe place. What are the things you need to do to make sure that you feel centered and safe and are just like totally, and I don't have like I've never I've never been drunk a day in my life. I don't do drugs. I'm like it's not even like that is my bent. I've never cheated on my spouse. Like that hasn't been my bent. But it's just like to name all that clearly, safely, like all that comes up. And I think if we're honest, it comes up for all of us in different ways. And maybe you're not even in tune with how clear it is. I'm just telling you all the things that come up for me. And it's a really great thing to be like, I have a safe place to say that. And that person doesn't say anything but like, hey, just make sure you're in a safe place. I know who you really are. I'm praying for you. I'm going to check in with you tomorrow. And that happens more often than you would think it would, right? Like it happens often and it's not bad. It's like, it's really good. And my wife knows like there's a couple relationships I'll always prioritize and that she's free to be like, please go spend time, like whatever you need to do to make space for that. And vice versa with her. I think it's not just for me, it's for her too. So I would say it has been just uncalculable how life changing it's been. And if you think about it, that's exactly what Jesus leads us to. Confess your sins to one another that you would be healed. It's not confess to me, God the Father, so that you're healed. The healing comes through confession to other people. And I think there's a real smart way Jesus was lining up for us to be healed through confession to others and not just to him. And so I think why it's so impactful is because it's literally a biblical model of what happens when you're just honest about your own struggles. And everyone's messed up. You should just be really concerned about the people that never actually let you know how they are messed up. That's where you should be concerned.
Yeah,
like if people
right.
seem to have it all put together, be very wary. Be very wary. It's just not the case. We all have our stuff. It doesn't mean we have to like throw it out for everyone to hear. And that's not even my hope. My hope isn't to overshare. It's to hopefully give a window of like, this is real for anybody that you would even think, because there's a podcast that might give you this assumption that people don't have to work through this stuff. Just because you sit on a stage or a podcast does not mean you're not dealing with all the same stuff that you listener are listening to. That it's the exact same. So just be encouraged. There is hope, and you can confess, and you can bring life and healing, and it is not as scary as you think.
So applicable and like just I'm so grateful that you shared with us that story because it just shows like, hey, you're a normal person, right? Like we're normal people and we're all
I think
sinners and
everyone's hearing that
broken.
going like, oh yeah, I get that.
Oh, for sure.
Like that's me too.
Yeah,
For
whether
sure.
it's with your spouse or it could be something
With
at
your
work or
kids,
kids.
coworker,
Like
yeah.
if you have kids, I mean, I feel like that happens like daily, and we're constantly like, go regulate, go regulate. No,
Yes.
Cold
Yes.
plunges are so good for that. I don't know, Brooke, if you found like at the end of the day, a
Yeah.
long work day, just a quick 3-minute plunge, just a reset. As long as your kids aren't talking to you while you're in there, it's kind of challenging. But if they are willing to give you 3 minutes,
Yes, I agree. Trying to
well,
be in that level, psychological stress and physical stress is very hard. Yes, I agree.
Hey, well, Brooke, man, we got to wrap up. This has been so refreshing and just so rich.
Mm.
So grateful. How can our listeners get plugged into what you're doing, what all the stuff you're writing, things you're creating? How can they hear about it and get more plugged in?
Yes. Easy resource, easy places to go. Intentionalparents.org would be one. Intentionalfatherhood.org would be another. You can always listen in, as I said, the Intentional Parents podcast, that's weekly. The Intentional Fatherhood podcast, that's weekly right now as well. And that's on any platform you like to listen to stuff. YouTube as well. You can check that out. And then social media is always just one where, it's easier, quick ways to see into the life of those who you're following. So feel free to follow that. And yeah, you can check us out. The fun thing is we have these retreats all around the country. Our next motherhood retreat is in Portland, Oregon in October, and our next one for fathers is in Austin, Texas in November. And so those are filling up fast. So get some tickets and come out. And those events are highly practical, theological, and built to give rest, hope, and direction for your fatherhood or motherhood journey.
Love it. Thanks, Brooke.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
awesome having you on.
Yeah. Honored. Thank you guys for having me.